Hi, I'm Todd Wente, and this is the Daily 180. 180 seconds of motivation and inspiration intended to help you take action and improve your life. Today is episode 140 of the Daily 180, and we're going to be starting a new series, a new short series dealing with our facets of life and dealing around the idea of awareness. Now, we've talked before about the idea of expectation, the idea that the things that we expect are generally the things that start to occur for us. A lot of times people talk about the idea of attraction, and in this idea of attraction, expectation and attraction work very similarly. Namely, that the more that we concentrate our thoughts upon something, the more that we expect for something to happen, the more that that thing may be drawn toward us. There are a lot of people that talk about this all the time, and there are lots of instances that can be demonstrated through stories, through other kinds of situations, through people's life experiences, where they concentrate on something and that causes situations to occur in a seemingly miraculous manner for the universe to give them the thing that they expect, or the thing that they are attracting to themselves. It's all well and fine, and I'm not going to draw any issues with that. But I do want to add that there's perhaps another element to that. And that's the element that I want to talk about, the element of awareness. You know, when we are expecting things in the universe, if we are not also being aware of what's going on around us, if we are not being 100% aware, or at least the majority aware of what's going on in the moment around us, we may miss the very thing that we are expecting to find. It goes back to an old story that I heard years and years ago about the farmer and the flood. Now, some of you may have heard this once or twice, but if you have, bear with me. Those of you who haven't heard it before, you're in for a treat. There was a flood coming, and a farmer was very aware that this flood was coming, and he said his prayer. He made an expectation. He said, God will provide. He said, you know, I'm sure that God will provide. His farm butted up against the river, and you know, as people were going through and saying, you know, it's evacuation time, the farmer said, I'm not concerned, the Lord will provide. Some of his neighbors drove by as the river began to overflow its banks, and everything was starting to turn to mud, drove by with a truck, and they said, hey, get in, you know, this is your last chance to evacuate before the river really floods. He said, you know what, God will provide, I'm going to be just fine. A little while later, the river started to flood significantly, and it got to the point where the roads were impassable, and he was trapped at his house. In fact, he couldn't even exit his house. He was starting to, you know, try and figure out how he was going to get all of his possessions up onto the roof. And about that time, somebody came by in a boat, and they said, "Hey, you know, get onto the boat. We'll evacuate you. We'll take care of stuff." He said, "No, the Lord will provide. I'm sure that everything will be fine." Shortly after that, the river overflowed its banks significantly, and his house was beginning to be completely covered in water. All that was left was his roof. He was standing on the roof, and a helicopter came by, and the people in the helicopter shouted down to him with a bullhorn and said, "Hey, get on board. We're going to lower a rope to you. Get on board, and we'll save you." He said, "No, the Lord will provide." Well, of course, the farmer died. In the flood, was swept away, died. And when he got to heaven, he said, "Lord, I was waiting. I was expecting you to provide for me." And he said, "I provided you a truck, a boat, and a helicopter. What more did you want?" Some of us find ourselves in those kinds of situations where we are expecting, but we may not necessarily be aware. So today my challenge to you is be aware of the things that you're expecting and see ways that those things might be coming. Perhaps not exactly as you'd planned, but enough to be able to make them available to you. My name is Todd Wente. This has been the Daily 180. A little bit long today, but thank you for your patience. We'll see you next time. Go forth and conquer. Take care.